welcome to Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and we have a packed agenda of some amazing guests. I'm really excited to be ringing in November with all of you today. We're going to start, of course, with our Mayor Scott Galvin. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Welcome to you, Samantha.
I have a couple of questions for you. I know you were kind enough to do a whole episode towards the end of last week talking about COVID status and some of the changes that have come down, but we've also since then changed the way ratings are calculated. And so we have moved from red to yellow, not necessarily because, well, you tell me, is it because we have drastically improved, or is it a result of the calculation changing?
We've been saying this all along when the superintendent and I go in front of the union members and the school committee, we talk about the importance of the three core indicators that are important to keep the schools open. And the CDC has always maintained that the two major core indicators in the community are case spread, which was the 8 cases per 100,000 per day, as well as the positivity rate, which has never changed. And those are the two core indicators, but somehow it was a little bit lost in translation that the cases were the only thing that mattered. And that was the message that was getting through to people. Matt and I were consistent in our message to the schools and to the teachers about what was important. And also, as I said, the other primary core indicators, what they do for PPE and how they set up their classes, which I think are probably a model for the community, the Commonwealth, and how well they've done it. So it has changed outwardly. Governor Baker's has changed outwardly, but it's still been the same standard held by the CDC. And the positivity rate in movement is just a tick over 2.5. And in order to stay in the yellow, you have to be under 5%. And a lot of that is a function of robust testing, which we're testing well. It would be, if we could test more, it might even be better for us, Samantha, because we test around 3,600 people on that 2-week period. And, if we had some more testing, I think that positivity rate would go down. And also the good thing about testing is you're identifying positives and isolating them immediately to stop the spread.
Yeah, it's really, it's quite good. And obviously we lean in testing towards people who are either showing symptoms or might have had exposure. I mean, those make up sort of the bulk of testing right now, but we're looking at doing some expansion, like for example, proactive testing of teachers, right? In which case those would be folks who might not be symptomatic or exposed, but surveillance testing, right?
That went really well. We did the first test round on Friday, and as we said, we offered it to up to 200. We're in a partnership with Armstrong Ambulance, and we're using FEMA funding and CARES funding to pay for that, which is a good thing. We had 100 teachers show up, and there was not one tested positive, so it was a great turnout.
That's fantastic news, and I'm sure it makes people comfortable to know they have that option. So thanks for that. This past week, DESE came out with some new guidance about, and some strong language, frankly, about in-person learning. Now, Woburn has been in a hybrid learning environment since the beginning of the year, and I suspect that language was largely directed at school systems that were just remote and weren't offering in person. But do you anticipate any changes to our school system based on that new guidelines?
No, not in the immediate future, because right now every city and town is experiencing a significant uptick in cases. And again, we've been able to identify when there is a positive. We've been able to do the contact tracing partnerships with Board of Health and the school nurses has been really good. We've been able to identify close contacts, isolate them, quarantine them, get them right out of school. So we've done a very good job in that regard, but I think we're still a little bit of ways to go. It's really encouraging news today about Pfizer coming up with a vaccine that was 90% effective, and we think there'll probably be a cascade of companies that are right on their heels. So that's really good news for the city, the state, and the country about where we're heading with this thing. So, if things break well, we optimistically will be back. And if the cases stay low and we're able to handle it, it would be great if we can get fully back to school after the first of the year.
That would be wonderful. I know a lot of people would really be excited about that. Thank you. Two other quick things. One only somewhat related. We have had, so I had this question come to me a couple weeks ago when we had just had snow. It feels very odd to be asking this question to you right now with the weather. So let me just acknowledge that reality, but I still going to ask you, assuming it gets cold again, which I'm sure it will soon, will we be redoing the skating parks this year, or do we feel like that's not a safe thing for us to do?
Well, it's a good question, and I wouldn't say no. I'm glad you brought it up because we really weren't had talked about planning, but I could see us doing a couple of them and have skating. It's a good outdoor activity, and if you wear your mask, it's just like walking, right? You can still get out there and do it. So it's a good question. We do them over in Darlene's ward, so I'm sure she'd be supportive of it. It's worked out really well over at Leland Park. So I'm glad you brought it up, and we'll have that discussion next week.
Great, excellent, thank you. And then last question for you, just a clarification. People were really excited to hear and learn about the seniors food delivery, food service that was being available to help folks who might need that right now. And a couple of people had asked the question, they're homebound, they're not able to come do the pickup. I'm assuming that they should contact the senior center and arrange transportation as we have done for some other things, but I wanted to just check in with that and see if we'd had any.
Yeah, that's definitely right. That's the right answer. That today was the first day, and Marie checked in. They had 40 people, which was really good considering we put it together last week around Wednesday. We expect more to be calling as the week goes by, and if they do need to have it delivered, we'd certainly oblige to do that.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. Anything else that you want to add before we turn over to some of our other guests?
No, I think that's good. I know you got a busy schedule, and I just see people on Veterans Day, and thanks again for the opportunity to address the people, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, so much for joining us. I'd like to invite George Poole to join us now. Welcome, George.
Thank you.
Oh, excellent. So I'm very excited. George has the perfect tie. He's got his American flag hat tip to that, which is wonderful. Wanted to thank you so much for joining us, talk a little bit about Veterans Day, which is coming up. And although we might not be celebrating with as much fanfare and gatherings as we have in the past, tell us a little bit about what the city does have planned.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the mayor, Galvin, because if it wasn't for his efforts about 2.5 weeks ago, our Veterans Day program was in doubt. But through his efforts, we were able to put a limited program together. And Veterans Day is always on November the 11th at 11 a.m. It's one of 4 holidays a year that are celebrated on the date. New Year's Day, Veterans Day, Independence Day, and Christmas. All the other holidays are based on Monday holidays. Veterans Day is always on the day. It remembers the end of World War I. And we refer to it as Veterans Day. At one time it was Armistice Day. And it's also a worldwide holiday. It's known as Remembrance Day to celebrate the ending of the Great War, which would end up to be World War I. France, most of the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, parts of India, Barbados celebrate it as Remembrance Day, but we celebrate it as Veterans Day to honor all of those who have served our country honorably. And unlike Veterans Day, Memorial Day, we honor all of those that have great heroes that have given their lives for our country. So our plan is on this Veterans Day on Woburn Common on November the 11th, Wednesday at 11 a.m. We'll have a program that will consist of, first of all, I mentioned there'll be no organizations formed on the common as we normally do. And we will request that everybody social distance and wear masks during the entire program. With the 3 speakers, the mayor, Larry Giuseppe, and myself, we will take our masks off while we're at the microphone. But other than that, we will have our mask on. And we'll have the opening. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance to have everybody join us. We'll have the response from the mayor. Larry Giuseppe will read the governor's proclamation. I will read the honor roll of the deceased veterans of the city that have passed away since last Memorial Day. And we will have a firing of volley from the George A. Campbell Post 101 followed by taps and closing. So we've eliminated a number of items from our program, but we are going to recognize Veterans Day.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. We know that we have to adjust a lot of things these days, but I'm glad we're able to support our veteran community. For those who aren't able to join or who are, avoiding sort of gatherings of any kind right now, what are some of the other ways they might be able to honor the veterans of our community on their own?
It's interesting. I just read an article in the VFW magazine from Commander Schmidt that he put out that a lot of, right now, what we are going through with the virus, a lot of veterans are homebound, particularly the older veterans. And his suggestion is, if you have a neighbor or you have a friend that has served in the military, give them a phone call to the older veterans. The younger veterans, you can do emails, you can do texting, you can do Facebook with the modern ways of communicating, just to say to them, thank you for your service to our country.
That is a wonderful thing. Thank you so much. I know for myself, I try and usually do a little bit of a charitable donation to something like supporting the troops or many of the other things that are available as well. And to make sure to keep out a look for our neighbors, that's really valuable because there are a lot of people who are home right now. So little cheer.
We do have a program here in Woburn, the Friends of Woburn Veterans, which I am on. And you look at our beautiful monuments around the city, and it's to preserve and put up new memorials in the city. And it's a non-profitable, it's 100% where nobody gets a salary, we're all volunteers. So that's always a good way to make a donation if anybody's interested, because it stays right in the city.
I love that. Thank you so much. What a great suggestion for folks. Thanks for joining us, George.
In closing, I would like to make one more comment that we do have a number of parents and grandparents that have children and grandchildren currently serving in the military. Mm-hmm. And you might now have a neighbor that's serving in the military. With the holidays coming, reach out to them, do the old-fashioned thing, send them a Christmas card, send them a New Year's card, a Hanukkah card, but just to remember them. Particularly our military that are serving far away, particularly on the ones that are serving overseas. And the holidays can become very, very lonely. And it's a nice way to stay in contact with your friends and family back home here in Woburn.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much for joining us, George. We'll be thinking of everyone and all the veterans in our community on the 11th. And I'm glad we're finding a way to celebrate those heroes for ourselves. Even if it looks a little different, we're still a wonderful thing that we're doing. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to welcome in our Ward 5 City Councilor, Darlene Mercer-Bruen. Thank you, Darlene, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And, while we're on thank yous, I wanted to send out a quick thank you to the mayor and the Board of Health and our police and fire departments for keeping us all safe over these last crazy several months. They're doing an amazing job, and I know everybody appreciates it. My family and I certainly do.
For sure. It has been a challenging few months, and I'm actually really proud to be from Woburn and to see all the hard work everyone across so many functions are working extra hard these days, and we're so grateful for it. So, and including you. So thank you for taking time out to join me. You have been a longtime member of the City Council, but it's been about a year since the last election cycle. And what a year it has been. Before we dive into some Ward 5 specific business, would love to just have you take a look back at this last crazy year and sort of comment on some of the things you're really proud of.
Well, I'm proud that my fellow council members and I, along with lots of help from City Clerk Campbell and his entire staff, we've been able to continue to meet, and whether it's in person or Zoom, and we've done a combination of both of those things so that we can keep business rolling and supporting the different orders that have come down to support our businesses, to support our schools, to get them the things that they need in this odd, scary at times time in our life. So I'm absolutely very proud of that. I'm proud that I could be sort of on the front lines without, I'm not out there in the thick of it with the clinicians, but I'm able to do my part here. So I'm very proud of that. And we have some big things that we're debating on the council floor now. So the Zoom has provided an opportunity to have lots and lots of people involved in those. So.
You know, one of the things that I've observed about my own behavior is that I shamefully did not participate in many school committee meetings or library trustee meetings or city council meetings prior to the pandemic. And I just found the schedule challenging, and I didn't do a very good job of making time for it. But the option of having Zoom has made it so much easier to participate and to really be a much more active resident. So I little part of me, or actually a big part of me, kind of hopes some of that continues, even when we can go back to maybe being in in-person meetings. It's been a really wonderful way, I think, for lots more people in the community to engage.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But there's nothing like actually being, you know, in the council chamber, whether it's sitting on the council floor. I've been to a few meetings of the Traffic Commission over the course of the last few months. I've been to in-person meetings for the License Commission as a speaker in front of them. And I appreciated that opportunity to do that. So, you know, maybe I don't think the Zoom meetings are going away anytime soon, but, you know, maybe we will have a hybrid. I think you're going to see that with a lot of things. You're going to see that with businesses that have already expressed an interest in having their people and employees work at home sometimes. Now, I don't know if you remember, but before COVID-19 hit, you know, one of the big challenges we face as a region is the traffic, right? Not just in Ward 5, but traffic all over the region. And the governor back in January and December was talking about bringing forth transportation plans and reaching out to companies saying, will you consider having some people work at home and on these days, and try to stagger the hours so we can lighten up on the traffic. And well, unfortunately it happened, you know, with COVID, but it's interesting to me. I think back on that now, and Governor Baker's, you know, attempt to do that, you know, I think it's going to stick. I really do.
I'll tell you, I've had a home, so I'm in my office right now, but it is attached to my house. And I'm deeply grateful that I have that option. But it has been remarkable that the amount of time just even not commuting to meetings and not doing things. Now I miss being in person, and I want to go back to a time where I can do some of it, but having the flexibility to sort of operate and not have to be in a car for an hour and a half on a way to a meeting just to Boston, 10 miles away is great, right?
Yeah, so we'll see. There could be a, you know, let's hope there's some good that comes out of all of this really scary bad stuff, right?
Well, I have to say, one of the good things, I'm going to sound a little bit like a stalker when I say this, so don't take it that way. But you had gotten some peer recognition at Winchester Hospital recently, right? And
how do you know that?
I got my sources. I've got people who tell me all kinds. I had shared that you were going to be a guest in my show, and honestly, I had people wanting to like give you high fives. So congratulations!
That's so sweet. I have to say that was quite an honor. I love my work at Winchester. I am not a clinician at all. I don't do patient work, but I am, you know, support the Associate Chief Nursing Officer and her peers, and I just love it. And the work they do is amazing. The work that the nurses and the nurses' assistants and the transporters and the volunteers, it is amazing. They do God's work every single day. I consider myself very lucky to be there with them. So.
Well, I know that they wouldn't be able to do all their work without folks like yourself. So thank you for that. I just wanted to pass that along because we know how all these pieces fit together, right? All of us works together, and grateful that you're part of that community with us. So
well, it's amazing how quickly word gets around.
Good news travels fast. Good news. Yeah. Good news travels fast, and we like that. That's part of what makes Woburn special. We're still, you know, we're a city, but we still have a tight community. So it's very nice to see that. I do want to just talk for those folks like myself who are sort of map challenged and directionally challenged. Ward 5, kind of tell us the boundaries of Ward 5.
It's really big. So here's, I don't know if you can see this.
We can,
You
yes.
can. So this is Ward 5. And then you can see the other wards. So to give everybody a little perspective, we have 2 precincts, like most of the wards here. Precinct 1 has about 100 streets, give or take. Precinct 2 has about 77, 78 streets. So if you go from Commerce Way, so everybody knows where Target is, right? So from Target and Commerce Way, and you start moving south to Mishawam Road, to Olympia Ave, to Salem Street, over to Green, and then eventually back over to Washington, where it touches Winchester, and then everything in the middle. So it's, and of all those streets that I just said, 100 and then 77, a majority of those are residential streets. And of course, we have probably the biggest amount of industrial, commercial, and retail here on this side of Woburn as well. I would have to venture to guess that 60 to 70% of the revenue that's generated in the city is generated right here. And that's not new. You know, I grew up here on this street on Richard Circle. And, you know, when I was a kid, we only had Bradley's here. There was nothing here. So, and then when my husband and I bought this house from my parents, close to, let's see, my daughter's 24, so 27 years ago. The reason we bought this house, obviously I wanted to stay in Woburn. And so did my husband, actually. He's a Wakefield guy, but he loved the city. But the reason we bought it is because it's so convenient. You know, at that time, almost 30 years ago, we had, you know, it was Kohl's then, and then we had Lowe's, and the Woburn Mall was put in when I was in high school. And up and down Washington Street was already developed. So I've been saying this for years, you know, it's like I could walk out my door and get a gallon of milk and a chainsaw all within like 5 minutes. So that, you know,
That's a combination. I like that.
It's convenient. And with that convenience also comes the traffic. So, you know.
It's a fine balance. I want to talk about some specific projects that are happening in Ward 5, because I think they impact not just the folks who live in Ward 5, but all of us who shop and work and visit those areas. Before we do that, though, I want to go back just a second. You talked about earlier that there were some big items on the discussion and the agenda around City Council in general and some of the things that are happening there. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that are being talked about and being discussed and decided on in the next few weeks or so.
Okay, so one of the biggest things is back in May of 2018, the City Council, after, gosh, I think we probably spent a good year on it, with the conceptual plan for the development of the craft site over at 93, the corner of 93 and Montvale on Hill Street.
Yeah.
So we approved the conceptual plan, but we also said, okay, once these plans start to come to fruition, we still want you to come back and acquire a special permit, because we wanted to have some additional control over traffic, over aesthetics, over, you know, police and fire and impacts on the schools and all those things. So they just recently started to come to the council about, I say recently, it's been about 7 months now. We've been having public hearings on the 3 different proposals. And the first is for an assisted living memory care building that will go on the site. And the second is for some townhomes that will go on the site. And then also apartment buildings. So we've had a lot of participants from Winchester and Stoneham, and we've had a few people participate from Woburn, but the people in Woburn participated a lot when we had the original conceptual plan. So I think now that we're seeing, you know, some of the special permits, then we're seeing some of the abutters. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I appreciate and want to make sure that, you know, the other communities feel heard. And but at the end of the day, my responsibility is to the people that live in the city. This is where this development is. And, you know, like when BJ's went in, for instance, you know, they heard us. They heard our concerns, but, you know.
But it was Stoneham.
You know, they took, you know, they made sure that, you know, they took care of the residents in Stoneham. And I wasn't on the council then, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is I want to, as a city councilor, I want to hear what the other communities have to say. I think it's important, and we take those things into consideration. But at the end of the day, this project is in Woburn, and we need to do everything in our power to make sure it is the best project for Woburn.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think we've seen a lot of development. We're going to talk about some others as well that affect traffic and school load and all kinds of things. Thank you for that update on the craft plan. That is certainly something that a lot of people have been asking about. What are some of the criteria that you're listening for? Like, how are you going to decide ultimately what we approve and don't approve? What are you hoping that we as a city get from it? And what are your concerns that we avoid introducing into Woburn?
Okay, so just to be clear, the conceptual plan, I supported that. The entire city council supported it. So the things that they've brought forward are things that we've already said, yes, we'd like to see assisted living and memory care because one, it's needed, and two, the impacts are very, very low. And we also said we want to see some townhomes for purchase.
Okay.
And, you know, the apartments have to have a mixture of affordable and, you know, and it's interesting because the affordable piece, you know, the apartments will be $2,500 a month, likely, you know, and just like the rest of the rents in the city. So I think it's funny when, you know, the state says, yes, that you have to put aside so many for affordable. I mean, shouldn't they actually be affordable? But that's a conversation for another day. So those things we approved in concept. So now the things that as a counselor that I'm looking for, one, that aesthetically the buildings are nice. We don't want that. That is a gateway to our city. People are going to see those coming from, you know, from the north and coming from the south. So they can't be just slapped together with clapboard. They've got to have some architectural detail. And actually one of the buildings that, you know, they first brought to us for the assisted living, I told them, I said, this is not what we're looking for. That looks like a very industrial building. And I want to see better. And to their credit, they came back with a new set of plans. And I was very pleased with the second set of designs. Another thing, obviously, we need to understand what the groundwater management plans look like. One thing I've learned over the course of however many years I've been working with the people in Ward 5 is that when you have water problems, once you have them, it's very difficult to fix them. And it's very difficult to say where the water came from. So making sure that's done right is so important. And we've spent a lot of time talking about it. We have 3 different peer reviews going on because conservation has to review it. The city council has hired a peer reviewer for it. And then there's another independent peer review going on for stormwater. And I'm confident that with that many eyes, we'll get it right. But we're not going to do anything until we get it right. And then, you know, I mentioned the residents. So the townhomes are being built up against a residential neighborhood on Sunset Ave. So I did ask the developer they showed us some plans with some lines that said, okay, here's where it's going to go. And, you know, frankly, that doesn't help people understand the perspective from their neighborhood. And I know from my work, what seems like a very long time ago in the Highway Action Committee, I know that 15, 16 years ago, they had software that you'd be able to show somebody's neighborhood and the impact of what something would look like, a structure, a building, a flyover, highway flyover. And I asked them to do that. That didn't seem like a big ask. And I believe that they're going to be showing something next week. Traffic, right? We're spending the federal government gave us $10 million to widen Montvale Ave. So we don't want that to be for nothing, right? So, but keep in mind, before we moved forward with Montvale, we always knew the craft site was going to be in play. So a lot of that was built in, but they still have to come back to us with additional traffic mitigation plans. And the city council's really going to hold firm not to collect money. We want, if there's work that needs to be done, we want the work done. We don't want to just take a bunch of money and stick it into an account somewhere for later on. So those are the things that we've been talking about and looking at. And me personally, those are the things I want to see because it's important for the city.
Great. I want to talk about some of the other projects that you have going on. So Woburn Villages Now, where is Woburn Villages? We have a lot of construction going on, and I want to make sure I'm thinking of the right place.
Okay, so Woburn Village is our new bougie name for the Woburn Mall.
That's what I thought it was, but then I was second guessing myself.
We're very fancy now, right? So we're Woburn Village. When I was a teenager, it was the Woburn Mall. And all things become new again. This is the reboot of the Woburn Mall. It's the Woburn Village. So it's very much, I don't know if you've had a chance to go down there yet, but I think it really looks good. I'm very happy. We spent over a year debating the Woburn Mall and trying to get some of the aesthetics right. We didn't want just, some of the original drawings that we were given just weren't up to par with what they were saying it was going to be. And I think it's really looking nice down there. It's still an active construction site. So a lot of the parking is being taken up by construction workers. And unlike, Montvale Ave, the construction over there, and unlike Salem Street Bridge, where COVID did shut those projects down for a bit, the private developer over there, they kept working. And so a lot of progress has been made. There's quite a few stores already open, and Market Basket even painted their building, and they were under no obligation to do so. So I was really pleased to see that. DSW is open, Panera is open, and the bank is open.
I gotta tell you, I'm counting down to Shake Shack. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm ready.
Yeah. So Shake Shack has been permitted for the work inside. And interestingly enough, they have asked the city council on tomorrow night's agenda. They have asked for what they are calling a minor modification to the plans. Now, the minor modification, what they're suggesting as a minor modification, is the installation of a delivery window. Now, the window itself, in my opinion, is probably minor. The implications of it, probably not so minor. So we need to hash that out and figure it out. And we all want to do the right thing, but this is a pedestrian, this whole project was pitched as a pedestrian friendly environment. So, if we're really talking about a drive-through, then, we have to be cautious. And I'm not suggesting that's what they're talking about. But at first glance, I think, window pickup. Yeah. We just have to be, I'm going into it with a completely open mind, but I want to be cognizant that this is a pedestrian-friendly situation, and we need to keep it so.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And, it may be something like, like a Nanobits ice cream where you walk up, but there's a window to serve there. Or it might be something they're thinking drive-through, in which case I know will be a challenge. So
I don't think they're saying drive-through. I think they're saying, customers will have to walk up, and that all sounds great. But in the back of my mind, doing this a long time, I think you can't always make customers do what you want them to do. Sometimes they're going to just drive up anyway. So
fair point.
So, and I speak from experience. So, but I think we'll get through it. We all want to do things to help people out. And, if we can do it in a way that still speaks to the spirit of what's going on. And I only mentioned it because, you asked me about Shake Shack, and I think you asked me about what other things are going on in the council, and that just happens to be tomorrow night. So like I said, I'll keep an open mind. And we'll figure it out, because I know my kids are all over me. When is Shake Shack opening? It's just like,
I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to things these days, and that's one of them. So I'm excited for that. There was also, I heard rumor of like a development on Mill Street, like at one of the ends. I don't know if somebody was asking about that, and I don't really know the exact. Is that moving forward?
So about 4.5 years ago, the property owner put forward a 40B project, which, as I'm sure you know, the city has very little control over. That doesn't come to the city council. It went to the Board of Appeals. And, despite best efforts to try to stop it, it went through. But it went through with a lot of conditions that will include, the installation of sidewalks on different parts of Washington Street and Mill and so on and so forth. But the developer got into some financial trouble not too long ago. And had he not sold the property when he did, the permit would have expired. But he did sell the property to another developer who plans to move forward. Now, we haven't seen anything. I mean, moving forward, if he sticks a shovel in the ground, he gets to keep his permit.
Okay. And for those who aren't, so 40B is apartments, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
but well, it's apartments, but it's there's a law on the Mass General Law. It's called 40B, and it's supposed to. I think when it was created back in the 60s, the idea was that it would provide for affordable housing, which is a wonderful idea, but it doesn't really do that. What it does is provide a very small percentage of what is deemed affordable. And then it basically allows developers to supersede all of our zoning laws, all in the name of affordable housing. But so as a city, cities and towns have a certain quota that we have to hit for affordable housing. And Woburn, I think, has always done a great job with that. We have a great mixture of, single family, 2-family, 3-family apartments, condos, and we've been pretty good about, you have to keep a balance, right? And, the 40B law is a challenge for us because you don't want, you don't want a giant apartment building in the middle of a residential single family neighborhood, or some people are under the impression that 40Bs can only be built in certain places. 40B can be built anywhere in the city, anywhere if we don't have our quota met, which, by the way, is not easy to keep track of. Our planning director does a great job for us. And we're currently at our quota, which is great if you count Salem. But what we did a few years back, the state calls it a friendly 40B process. So it's where you work with the developers, where they have to put a higher percentage of affordable housing aside. And down on Commerce Way, we have two such developments. One is the old Fitzgerald Tile Building, and that'll all be retail on the bottom, which will be very nice because it's right near
Woburn Villages.
Down the street from right near Bob's Furniture, and I'm trying to
the train station,
Chipotle.
Anderson.
Chipotle, that's the other place my kids live, Chipotle. And it's next to Anderson.
Yeah.
So we have that, and then another one over at Presidential Way. And down there, that is a great place because we can achieve a couple of different things. We can have access to Anderson, less cars on the road, have easy access to retail and shopping, literally right at your fingertips. Sometimes these regional transportation things people will pitch in places in the city. It's like, well, what? Because there's a bus stop, it's easy. I mean, do you imagine somebody taking their groceries 6 blocks? So that was a very long answer about Salem and Mill, but that's what's going on. It was purchased and it will still move forward.
Great. And the bridge construction update, there's a lot of action still happening there. When do we anticipate that being done?
October, November 2021. And the goal was always by MassDOT was to keep the bridge open. And it's not just the bridge work, it's a reconfiguration of Pine Street to Salem, which is long overdue. That was about a $5.2 million job from also the state's doing that job. And I have to say, I think they've been doing a great job. Our Woburn PD is out there during the construction. They keep things moving, they're keeping it safe. But that did suffer some delays. I actually had a call from someone just a couple of weeks ago saying, what the heck is going on? Why is it taking them so long? They were really going along until March, and then it just stopped. And I said, well,
few things happened in March.
But sometimes people don't make the connection and one of the reasons why is because people did see the mall still being moving forward, but that's a private development. They obviously had arrangements with their workers, but the state shut everything down. But we'll see it done hopefully October 2021. And I know between, we've got Montville Ave, right? The widening over
Yep.
there. But not only are they widening, we have a water relining project going on in Montvale Ave at the same time. And this is a triple imperative. And we have Eversource doing work over there. And then we have the Salem Street Bridge going on. So wherever you go, it's dirty and it's disruptive. And, you know, it's like when you redo your kitchen, you get all excited and you pick out all your fancy stuff, right? Your new, and then they show up to demolish everything and you go, what was I thinking? So that's, we're in the middle of that. It'll be over soon. We just have to be a little bit more patient. That's all.
Good. It's going to be a little while, but we're getting there. We're getting, another, it's going to be messy for a while, but last question for you. So you have always been really supportive of the school budgets and everything.
Absolutely.
We've got a ton going on right now. Hybrid school has really changed maybe where we've had to make investments and where we've had to adjust staffing. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to see coming out of the Woburn school system, or as we try and get through the next series of changes with state guidelines and such?
First, I have a 17-year-old who's a junior at Woburn High. And I just want to say the school has done an amazing job. And I say that as a city councilor, but I say it as a parent. My daughter came home from school the first day and she's, Mom, it's amazing how organized and structured everything is. And so she goes to school Monday and Tuesday, then she has classes Wednesday. And it's, I'll tell you what, they did it. And it's amazing to me when I hear other cities and towns are still trying to figure out a plan. What our people were, and I say they're our people, right? Our teachers and our superintendent, they worked hard all summer, and their work showed in how our kids are being educated in this crazy time. And I am so proud of them, and so proud as a parent, as a resident of this city. It's just amazing. So we have to make sure that when budget comes, they still, because, I know that the vaccine, it sounds like it's coming, right? But who knows when it will come here to us, right? We have a lot of frontline workers that need it first, the nurses and the doctors and the fire and the police. So we're probably going to need PPE for a long time. We're going to need special classroom setups. We're going to need the computers. We're going to need all of those things. So there's going to be a whole new group of kids coming into the schools that are going to need those computers. We have to make sure the money's there to do it. And Woburn will. We will. Yeah. We absolutely.
I love hearing that. And I agree. I think this has been a very challenging time for schools across the board. My own children are now out of school. My youngest graduated in the past spring. He went to Northeast, the baby. The other ones went to Woburn High. So it's been a challenging time. I do hope some of what we've learned about remote education and different types of interactions we'll be able to keep as we even go back to in-person learning. It'll be an interesting opportunity for us to take the best of everything, right, and sort of mash it together. But it's been tough for everybody.
And the social aspect of it, I think, is really difficult. And
yes,
I think it's important for the kids to get back as soon as we possibly safely can do it full time.
Yep.
And obviously we want to make sure our teachers are safe. And I know we're doing testing now, which is phenomenal. That is so great. So fingers crossed. But again, I can't commend them enough for the work that they did. And they did it they weren't just sitting around all summer. They weren't at their vacation homes. I don't know what was going on with some of these other cities and towns, but I know here in Woburn, they were doing their work, and it shows every single day at that school. So they've
worked really hard, and
so grateful. So,
teachers, staff, the cleaning staff, the cooking staff. I mean, all summer they fed people. I mean, it's really been a remarkable. It has been a remarkable thing, and I know we'll all look forward to the time when they can safely be back in the schools. And in the meantime, they're working really hard to make hybrid work, and I know that's not easy.
It's definitely not easy. I mean, look, I couldn't even keep my dogs quiet for 2 seconds to have this.
It's all this. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Before we wrap up with library programming, is there anything else that you'd like to touch base on?
No, I just want to thank all the citizens of Woburn and Ward 5, obviously. This is a great city, and again, I just consider myself so lucky to be part of it. And, you know, my kids say to me, one of my daughters didn't go to school in Woburn, but my other two daughters did. And my oldest one says to me all the time, she's like, oh, Camille and Claire know everybody. And and they went to, they go to school.
Yeah.
People, you know, their parents went to school with you. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, well, this is a great city. We're so lucky. And 40,000 almost, right? And you said it earlier before we started talking, Samantha, 40,000 people, but you never know it. This city is like a small town, and nobody gets it until they move here from someplace else and they go, oh, wow, this is what everybody's talking about. So
Yeah, you know, we are very lucky. I was not fortunate enough to be born and raised in Woburn myself, but I've now been here just about 25 years, and raised all my children here. So it's definitely home, and we're very grateful for it. I think we're really lucky, and we're lucky because there's people like yourself who are constantly working to make it better.
I love this city.
And,
I'm so
right?
grateful to be able to keep doing this work with my constituents and people like you. So,
well, thank you so much for joining us and catching us up on all the things that were happening in Ward 5. And I think it's really important because most of those things affect, of course, the Ward 5 residents, but really all of us. Those are all
Right.
things that will be, we all drive on those roads. We all visit those stores. We all have an opportunity. And I'll be toasting you when I have my first shake. I've got,
I will let
ready.
you know. They'll send, I'm sure somebody will send you a VIP pass or something.
That would be very funny if they did. My children might fight over it, but thank you so much for joining us, Darlene.
Thank you very much. Take care of
Right.
yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bonnie, you are so, I'm so glad you're joining us. We're going to wrap up the show with information on library programming.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's so exciting to hear about Shake Shack and all the things that are happening.
Right? I'm salivate thinking about it.
A little bit.
I have to tell you, I was so disappointed because I signed up for a yoga class and it rained on the day that I was supposed to go to yoga class and we weren't able to. But this beautiful weather, I hope there's been lots of people on the library lawn these last few days enjoying this lovely, lovely weather. Tell us about the programming that we've got coming up this month.
We've got so many different things. I've actually made a couple of notes, but some of the new things we're offering are Art at Home, which is a fantastic program for children who love art. You know, they'll, sometimes it's nice art can be very calming as well as creative. So it'll be a 5-week course led by an artist educator who'll use a combination of materials easily found at home, you know, to help families and children create. It's aimed at a slightly older group, children ages 8 to 12. So, you know, a lot of times people have more than one child, so it's nice to be able to do something as a family. So we thought that might be really enjoyable, and that'll be Monday afternoons, kind of later in the day. We also kicked off a yoga and meditation series for children on Monday afternoons, which, you know, seems to be pretty well received. We'll be doing some more escape rooms. Our next one is called The Abandoned Island. It's kind of like it's billed as a immersive murder mystery, but kind of like a Scooby-Doo escape room. I think would be more apt.
That sounds fun. I've never done a virtual escape room or mystery, but I am done many in person, and I'm a huge fan, and I'm terrible at them. Just to be really clear, I'm not a master, but it is so much fun to problem solve with people.
Yeah, particularly, you know, slightly older, but not too old. It can be a lot of fun if you have siblings and that type of thing. What else? We've got, what I did want to mention is it's National Family Literacy Month too. So we're doing a variety of different activities and making a variety of changes in the youth services room as well. This month we launched 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, which is a national initiative that's pretty popular with libraries across the country. But basically it encourages parents or caregivers to remember to read to, you know, toddlers, infants, and babies, you know, to build those kind of budding readers in that, you know, family bonding time together. So there are sheets that have a little show and tell, right? So
Please, I love show and tell.
yeah, right. So you can pick these, well, I don't know if that really works, but there are logs, so you can print them online or.
Bonnie, it is making you look like you came from the Matrix or something.
I know, right? You get a little bit of a shot, you know. So there
we go. Now we can see it.
There we go, right? Well, anyway, take my word for it. They're sheets where you color off circles. They're 100 on a page, but it's not a high pressured activity. It's more just to kind of keep track in a fun way and, spend that family time together reading. And we also have displays of great family read alouds kind of throughout the room, just to, discover some new favorites that you might want to share with your, kids and family. And, sometimes when people, or when children start reading, you kind of drop off and don't read as much together, but just to remember that, is such a wonderful activity and such a great way to support literacy. We want to continue to encourage that. We're also doing math and science displays in the children's room this month, kind of looking at the different ways to encourage scientific as well as math literacy. And we're introducing math kits, something like, I'll try another failed show and tell here. But, so you'll see like games or manipulatives or different ways to kind of play with math that as opposed to read about it, nothing that's wrong with that, but just to approach it from a variety of different ways. Sometimes, people engage with things differently. We want to make sure in youth services we support all different types of learners. So there'll be more of that in the room. I feel like I've drinking too much coffee and I'm talking to you, but
I keep it going. You've got me hooked in. I'm looking. I gotta say, when you said art at home, I got so excited because I thought you were going to say that I could get like a little painting class from home or something. But hopefully, I'm sure we'll do all kinds of things like that as we progress forward. So.
Absolutely, right? We went to yoga. Now we're moving inside. Maybe we'll do a little more art. We also are redesigning the children's room using what we call BISAC, which is more of a book industry standards, a way to communicate topics and make things more user-focused. And that sounds like a lot of gobbledygook. So let me explain what.
Can you tell by my silence that I was waiting for more, Bonnie?
My brain was too. But so what we're doing now is we've created 2 sections so far. And one is called favorite characters and one is called like favorite topics. And they're pretty much like they sound, but the idea is to really empower our youngest readers when they come in to be able to find materials themselves and be able to browse in a kind of really fun and engaging way. So in favorite characters, it's kind of like it sounds. Like you'll have a character section set up, like I really should drop this backdrop, but like the Berenstain Bears, you'll find under Berenstain. You'll find Clifford under Clifford, Curious George under Curious George, as opposed to having it all alphabetical by author's last name. And same, a lot of kids come in and they want to find the unicorn books, as opposed to just looking for, again, author's last name, that kind of thing. So we're set up really popular, like fire trucks, dinosaurs, princesses, that kind of thing, with friendly visual cues throughout the room too. So in the favorite character section, you'll be able to see different symbols that will kind of direct you to your section.
Nice.
It really empowers our youngest, because when you think about it, half the clientele in the children's room can't read yet. So it's sort of just to support them in finding their favorite materials is kind of a transformation that you'll see take place in the children's room over the next month or so.
That's great. Is it safe to assume that that is additive to librarians being there to help guide and make suggestions and things, right? Of course. I don't want people to hear that and jump to conclusions about
that.
Right?
No. It's sort of just to make it more accessible to kids. I think like no one comes into a children's room usually when they're under 5 and says, I'd really like to read some 596.82. It never happens, right?
It doesn't happen that way. I actually love, even when when my kids were little, as you know, we were in the old building, the building hadn't been renovated yet. So they were in the basement. And even then, just the joy of running around and looking at things and finding things was so fun to explore with them. So it's nice to see that we have many ways of doing that: visual clues, staff to help, traditional ways of, looking up books and by author and things like that as well.
Yeah, I think it's just about adding different points of access, just to empower people of any age to find things easily and comfortably in the room.
Good.
So
I love it. So we have the holidays coming up. Are there any specific good books or things or programs that you would recommend for people who might want to learn about a holiday that's not their own, right? That they might want to go explore something that a friend or a neighbor or just learn about somebody else's traditions.
Absolutely. One thing that I'm pretty excited about, when you speak about holidays, we've got a lot of different holiday events planned, but we're invited to take part in a collaborative community art project facilitated by the Museum of Fine Arts and an artist called Tova Speeder, as well as 7 other additional artists. And the project's called Brighter Connections, and it'll bring the light of Hanukkah to 8 greater Boston neighborhoods through works of art that are created in partnership. So the aim is to highlight not only the miracle of Hanukkah, but also kind of the present day miracle of strength, resilience, and vibrancy within the community, that kind of as we go through this challenging time. So in Woburn, kind of like in the darkest days of the winter, coming up in December, we'll have a stained glass artist named Emily Bargava, who will create scenes inspired by families in the area, which are representative of different Woburn winter traditions in Woburn. So she's going to take an upcycled window frame, and within that, there'll be 3 separate frames, and they'll create torn paper collages that will be backlit, and it'll be on display in the large print area, so you can see it from the outside, but you can also view it from the inside. And then it'll be the stories of those families' traditions through that kind of holiday experience. But then it'll also be part of, done in collaboration with 7 other communities. So people will be encouraged to see art created in the different communities and kind of travel through, the nights of Hanukkah looking at that. So
I love that. First of all, I love that we're celebrating a holiday that maybe not as many people know about. And I think that's wonderful. I love that you're doing it through art. It sounds like a great community activity. What are ways that families can get involved in terms of having input, or do they, in terms of what scenes get done or what traditions people have? Is there any way for folks to communicate with the artist?
So this is kind of like the first mention of this project because we just got involved. So
I get all excited, Bonnie. I want to know all the details right now.
I'm super excited about it. So it's very much an artist-led project. So we'll be rolling it out with the artists and the Jewish Arts Collaborative. So expect to see more news coming out from the library, and I'll certainly send you more as we have it.
That's great.
It's just a wonderful way to kind of bring light into this time, which has been such a challenging year, as well as to celebrate, another holiday. And
so I know that some people are going to be mad at me for saying this, but I came home from New Hampshire yesterday and my neighbors had their holiday lights on and I could not be happier. I just thought it was like my husband, not so much. He was, he's like, it's not even Thanksgiving yet, but I am just love the little bit of joy that I know it must be sparking for them. Honestly, as much as anything, I just know that if it makes them happy, that makes me happy. So I love seeing that come through. Talking about community input for a second, there sounds like there's so much going on, which is great, and more to come. What are some of the ways that the community can interact with your team or the team that's building programming to, share ideas, to provide input, to help you prioritize? Because I'm sure you have like 1,000 things that you could do. How do we make sure that folks know how to get involved?
Oh, they can absolutely send me an email. I get lots and lots of ideas from the community. And of course, we can't act on every single one, but we incorporate it into what we're doing. One actually, so absolutely go ahead and do that. One thing I would like to mention, it's related.
Even if it wasn't, that's okay.
We're looking for, we just recently launched ragrockgallery.com, which is an online exhibition space that goes with the archives at the Woburn Public Library. And in part of that, there are 4 different parts to the website. And one of them is an exhibition on how we live now. And we're looking very much for people to contribute their experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. And when they do, those are created into pieces of art and then exhibited online and become part of the archives at the Woburn Public Library. So we would love more submissions with that. As part of our senior partnership, we're working with middle school students and seniors to kind of capture their kind of distinct experiences during this time in Woburn. But when you think about it, 50 years from now, people are going to say, what happened in 2020? And what was it like in this city? And it would be really great if people could take some time. It doesn't have to be a well thought out 15-page paper, just like something that you changed for you during this time, or was a source of strength for you during this time, or something that you never thought you'd do but ended up doing, or whatever, your experience was. That would be fantastic to contribute,
Great. Well, I love it. And thank you for sharing, that folks can email you as always, which I think is great. I know that sometimes I sit around, some of the best ideations, the fun things, I was just kind of sitting around and chatting with people. So if there's in the future opportunities for people to have, focus groups is a very old word and probably not the right word, but to have groupthink sometimes comes up, I think, with better ideas or builds on each other's ideas and comes up with things. So if we have opportunities to do a little groupthink and provide event, I know there's lots of people who would love the opportunity to do that. So we'll look forward to that in the future. Excellent. Anything else before we wrap up today you've got going on that you want to share with folks?
Oh, so much. But no, I'd like to encourage people to take a look at Rag Rock Gallery. That would be fantastic.
Right.
Part of the Rag Rock site is there's a diary section. And in that, we're going to be featuring notorious people and places in Woburn. So that might be kind of fun. It's kind of, we head into.
I'd like to see what gets listed as the notorious spots. That's going to be very interesting to see.
So we plan to have a lot of different fun with it and kind of make the archives come alive in a different way. So, yeah.
Great. Well, good. I love it. Last little thing, and then I'll let you go because I know you're busy, as we all are. So I had Ed Quinn on the show last week. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to watch it, but he did have a chance. I know he met with you and toured the library. And
no, he hasn't met with me, actually.
He hasn't met with you. Somebody toured the library with him. I don't know who it was. Was it someone on your team? Was it somebody on your team?
Not that I'm aware of, but.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe my information was not correct, but in any event, he had some very positive things to say about how the library is set up from an ADA compliance standpoint and things. And he had a couple of suggestions of areas that might not be fully where we need it to be. And my question to you is going to be if we had any plans to address those gaps, but it sounds like perhaps you haven't had an opportunity to speak with him or to understand what those are. So I won't put you directly on the spot, but I'll send you the link to the show. You can take a listen to it and let us know maybe next time we connect.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, we have an ADA compliant building. It's state of the art. And if he has observations, I'm looking forward to working with the newly kind of revitalized commission as well. So we want to make sure the library is accessible and easy to use for everybody.
Yeah, we had a show with Ed and Tim talking about the new commission and what's to come. So excited. We're excited that the folks are going to be here. So we will reserve that conversation for a time when you've had a chance to see that. I'll send you the link. Thank you for the updates and all the programming. I think we're always glad to see that. I look forward to seeing some more stuff as it gets dark and colder and we're stuck inside. These virtual programs, I think, are going to be, and in person for those things that we can do that, are going to be what holds many of us sane during these times.
Yeah, I'm really excited that Woburn is one of the few libraries that's really fully open, particularly in the Minuteman network. A lot of places still are closed or won't be open by appointment. So I'm really happy for the city that the library is completely open. You can come down and see us.
Yeah, as we saw and Darlene spoke about earlier, Woburn's got the schools in a hybrid environment. We've got, I know everybody's worked really hard to make it work and to create environments. Some of the program you described being virtual for those who can't or don't feel comfortable coming in person, but also a number of things that we have available in person as well. Now, there's some other things I think you mentioned last time, or I might have just read about. There's some painting classes for seniors, right? There's a bunch of senior activities. You've teamed with the Senior Center.
We have, we've got Movie Mondays, we've got Tech Tuesdays, kind of a lot of alliteration going on there. Reading on Wednesdays didn't really make
sense. There's a little library in you coming out with those names, right?
And then we're also doing a really fun program connecting middle schoolers and seniors together with 3 kind of writing connections. One is called Ask a Senior, where middle school students get to fill out postcards to ask a senior, and then the Senior Center will respond to those. So I think it'll be
Oh, well, that's a wonderful idea. I hadn't heard about that one. That's good to
Yeah.
know about.
You know, it's sort of the things it's nice to have an older person in your life you can ask questions to, and it's kind of fun for everybody involved. And then middle schools will be recommending or not recommending books that they're currently reading in school, you know, which probably make the senior newsletter. And then again, they're connecting through their experiences in the pandemic and sharing what that's been like. So it should be fun.
That's great. Now, is the middle school, is that in coordination with the schools, or is it just something that you're doing in the library?
In partnership with the schools.
Yeah,
so it's
that's great.
Yeah, I think we're going to have an art show as well from the high school coming up. So just a lot of ways, you know, it's a good time to collaborate with other town departments.
It's a great opportunity. We love art and literacy and learning and sharing of ideas. So thank you so much. I'm anticipating that you're going to have a lot of college students coming home very soon, because with Thanksgiving, most campuses are closing their in-person education. Are there things that, other than just being available, which you are there other things that you're doing specifically for those returning college students who are likely to want to desperately get back out of their house, I'm imagining, at some points during the day?
Yeah, we're pretty much making every space available in the library for them to come in and spend some time with us, you know. So, you know, and then I'm sure we'll have more older, younger adult programming, hopefully, going forward.
I think that would be great. All joking aside, as a mother of college age students, I do think it's particularly challenging for them coming home right now, because they have been, can't hang out with friends necessarily. They probably, some of them may have a job, many of them might not. So a lot of them really are truly stuck at home with family, which we know they love desperately.
You really love to be home, but yeah, it's nice to get out.
But having some break is probably good for everyone, right? And
no doubt.
So great. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that programming as well. Thank you again, Bonnie. Really appreciate your update, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, great. Yeah, always nice to be on your show. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And thank you all for watching. As always, please continue to take good care of each other.